Hi, I'm Coach Michael BURT. To get a free copy of my book, Inside the Mind of a Monster, text 678-506-7543. Text to get a copy of my book, Inside the Mind of a Monster, and I'm going to turn you into a legendary creature. Hey there, I'm Coach Michael BURT, the Super Coach, coming to you from outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And every week I get to come to you and bring you some of the most interesting people in the world. And out of everybody I've had, this cat may be the most interesting. He's certainly one of the most interesting to me. And I actually caught myself, Steve SIMS, on a Saturday. This is before I really knew you. I'd seen you with Brad Lee somewhere along the way. And I was like, who is that guy? And then every weekend I spend the weekend studying big time people. I pick one person and I absorb all their content, all their interviews. And I got on this Steve SIMS kick on a Saturday. And I bet I watched 8, 10, 12 hours of videos, everything you're talking about on blue fishing. And I really just come to really admire your philosophy, because I'm a coach, right? And the number one thing I see people do is they have all these considerations, which are internal thoughts that prohibit them from taking an action. But there's nobody in the world that really comes along and helps you remove those considerations. And so I've got Steve SIMS here with me today, the man who created Bluefish, internationally famous company that makes once in a lifetime events happen for the rich and the famous. I always write that down too. I need to be selling to the rich and the famous, right? We all do. And reveals to the rest of us his trade secrets for making things happen. His day job to make the impossible possible. Some consider him the modern day Wizard of Oz. He's really a unique character. And so, Steve, welcome to Person of Interest.
Thanks for allowing me to be here. I hope I can live up to that hype.
Well, I mean, you know, when you think about this, let's start with that concept of considerations. And I don't know what you call them, but somewhere along the way I heard, you know, I grew up in the South and we were taught to be considerate, right? And then somebody came along and used this word consideration in a different context to me. And they said a consideration is like an internal thought that prohibits you from doing something. Like, I could never get Steve SIMS on the phone. I could never do this. I could never do that. I could never. So many times we just don't take actions. And you come along and you kind of say, no, man. If you can think it, you can do it. And there's a way to do it and we can make it happen. Where did that one thought in you germinate? Where did it come from? Where one day you woke up and said, man, it's all possible. This is all garbage. You can do it. I'm going to figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. First of all, it came from the fact that I was raised, we can go back to this, but I was raised poor in East London, the son of a bricklayer. And so at the age of 15, I left school and I was on a building site. So I didn't know anything. You know, I'd never heard of a Ferrari. We didn't have internet. We didn't have the Insta gurus leaning up against, you know, Lamborghinis at the time. My son's 14 years old and can name every designer in the planet. I knew none of that. So I didn't have any of that fear. I knew at the time, being a bricklayer, that is this really my life? Surely there should be something else. So I had that going on. So I was very curious and inquisitive. But my wife, who I met when she was 16 and I was 17, my wife was always said to me that my superpower is ignorance.
Yeah.
I've never overthought it. I've just gone, oh, you want to meet the Pope? Okay, I'll go and make it happen. I haven't frightened myself to death. And it's one of these things I kind of don't want to get people to change, because as soon as they change their philosophy, they'll realize that it's not really that hard to just go and ask someone for something and I'll be out of the business. But it's over the years, in the early part of the years, it was like, oh, I can't get into that nightclub. I'll be like, oh, I'll go make it happen. I can't get into that private party. Can't get into that premiere. I can't get to meet Guns N' Roses backstage. And I would do all of these things out of ignorance, and people would be like, oh, Steve just makes it happen. I realized two things. One, I didn't realize until later, but the one thing I did realize was that people were scared of themselves, and they were scared of allowing other people to see them rejected. Yes. Now, people don't like rejection. Mm-hmm. People don't like failing. They certainly don't like doing it in a crowd. So if you've got 4 guys with you and you want to get into a premiere, one of them's not going to come forward and go, boys, I'll make it happen, because they don't want to be shown up. Yet with me, I would do it. And then as these things started happening, and it kind of happened, it was 7 years in to me doing what I was doing, and we didn't know what it was called. I was just the guy that could. I was throwing a very, very expensive party for Ferrari in Monaco in 1997, the 50th anniversary of Ferrari. I'm hosting one of the biggest parties and it was funny, a 3-story boat. Well, I don't think they call them boats at 3-story, do they? But I couldn't get over the fact that this yacht had 3 lifts, 3 elevators in it. And in the afternoon, I was being like a little stupid kid going up and down thinking, how do you have a lift on a boat? You know, it's that big, it has to have a lift. And it wasn't until the following day that people were like, I don't know how you pull this off. I actually started looking at the stuff that I was doing and was going, oh, you see, I'd been moving, and you've probably seen this within your coaching. I know from your sports, it's momentum based.
Yes.
I was moving so much that I didn't give my fear, my inside consideration, chance to actually be loud enough for me to hear it. I just go. And I didn't always win. I didn't always get what I wanted. I didn't always get access. You know, there were times I was turned down, but it didn't bother me. And I learned a little saying very early on when I was a kid and I was getting declined. There were 2 ways into a house. Okay, so if you get shut out of the front door, find out where the back door is or the side window or something like that. So I always had these little things that, and if someone said to me, no, you can't do this, I very early learned on that I'm either asking the wrong question or, more importantly, the wrong person.
Yeah.
So I had those 2 sayings that would always go to me. You know, there's 2 ways to get into a house, and it's either the wrong question or the wrong person.
Well, that's a big lesson, because I think, you know, I tell people I signed bigger contracts when I first started coaching because I was a high school basketball coach. And I started my business out of ignorance or genius during the recession of 08.
Yeah.
And I had just a boatload of confidence. I had won championships. I didn't know any better. I would sit down across the table, Steve, from a big time person, and he'd say, how much is it going to cost us for you to coach our team? And I'd say $125,000. And they would look at me and go, let's round to 120 and get started. And then so I'm signing these big 6-figure agreements with companies right out of the gate because I'm just ignorant. I don't even know not to ask for that much money.
Exactly.
And 3 years into it, I caught myself having these considerations, and I started going, well, I bet they couldn't pay 6 figures, or I bet they wouldn't pay 6 figures. Or then I started actually asking for less money because my own brain was telling me they wouldn't do it. And so I've tried to beat this out of myself. And that day when I was watching you on all those interviews and your thought processes, I just said, man, this guy has no fear. He will make the ask. He will go for the close. He will try to do the deal. And that's what I need. But more importantly, my people need it. My sales team needs it. Right?
I've got one for you, a little story that will sum it up perfectly. I had a client of mine. I was actually working in Rome at the time, and a client of mine knew that I was there, and he was from Poland. And he asked me that he wanted to fly into Florence to surprise his fiance and his mother and father-in-law, and he wanted a beautiful, unique restaurant to take them to dinner to, get to meet him. He wanted to show how powerful he was and those kind of things. So I was in Rome. On the Sunday, I got the call, and the dinner was going to be on the Wednesday night. In 2 days, I managed to get the Accademia di Galleria, the museum that houses Michelangelo's David, to agree to shut down mid-afternoon until midnight and allow me to set up a table of 6 at the feet of Michelangelo's David. Okay, an entire museum. And once I'd got that, I then managed to get a friend made an introduction for me. I got Andrea Bocelli to agree to come in and serenade the clients while they're eating the pasta. Now, this was one of the most unique, fantastical things that I'd ever dreamt up. It went flawlessly, but here's the story from that. There was the curator. Now, the curator of the museum, he doesn't own the museum. most of the times they act as though they do, but he doesn't own the museum. He's not one of the big donators into it. But he was one of the guys that didn't really want to allow this to happen for me. Luckily, I was talking to the guys above him, okay, and the ladies. On the night, he had to be there to police it and to make sure that we were okay. Now, I had set up, the table was set up. We had a candelabra on the table. They had brought in a piano. Andrea Bocelli's in the corner with his son, just rehearsing while his son's tapping away on the piano. And this is a dick move, but I'm going to tell you exactly how it was. I knew I was getting friction from this curator. Uh-huh. I knew, this was a couple of years ago now, 3 years actually. I knew that this curator didn't really like me and looked at me as just a guy with connections, you know, that was just abusing them and didn't understand the real art and culture, and that's fine. So I wanted to kind of poke him a little bit for creating a bit of friction with me. And so I called him over to me. So he came over to me and we both stood there looking at the profile of David, looking at the table, listening to Andrea Bocelli. And I said to him, I said, "Oh, isn't this beautiful?" And he's like, yes, it is beautiful. I won't do the accent. He's like, "Yes, it is beautiful." And I said, "Did you ever think that we'd have a table of 6 at the feet of David and Andrea Bocelli actually serenading tonight in your museum?" And he was like, no, I never thought that would happen. And I said, "Oh, well, how come it happened?" And that was the move. I wanted to satisfy my ego. I wanted this guy that had been a bit of friction to turn around and go, "Well, Steve, you have connections. You know how to get a deal." I was waiting for all of those things that would be my final kind of told you so moment. Do you know the guy just turned around to me point blank and he went, "No one's ever asked."
Yeah.
And it killed. I realized what I was doing then was a dick move. Yeah. This guy realized he had won that battle of wits. Now, in fairness, we became friends that night and we've stayed in contact, but it was very, very powerful to the point that we even went and had dinner afterwards. No one had ever asked him because everyone is so petrified and they put up all these barriers in front of them. Yes. And you made a comment at the beginning about, "Oh, you know, I should always work with rich and famous people." Yep. When you see an event and you see someone go up to a rich and famous person or a richer and unknown person, okay, they do one thing that's exactly the same as pretty much 90% of human species. They bow. Yeah. I've had people go up to Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and as they walk up, they go, "Yeah, hi, how are you?" They lower their head. That's right. You know, you're straight away putting that person on a pedestal and pushing them away from. How can you have a relationship with someone that you go into by starting by pushing them away from you? Makes no sense.
So to that point, you know, how do you know, you've done a marvelous job of branding and positioning yourself. Is that part of your genius? Have you understood the importance of branding? Like, for example, do you, when it comes to your business, do you have a sales cycle? Do people just contact you? Do you have people making outbound calls? Like, how do you generate this? Because you've done a really good job of like getting very clear, positioning yourself as an expert. There's really nobody else that I can even think of that is known for what you do. Like, talk a little bit about the psyche behind that, because we come in every day and we have a sales team. They make 80 calls a day. They call on people to sell them into my coaching programs, but it's a very hard model, Steve. It's a very grueling grind of a model. And obviously I want to position myself in the world as an expert, the top coach in America. And I want people coming to me, and that works too. But what's your philosophy on that?
Right. So there's a few things there. There's a few questions there. For a start, and it's very weird now because I do actually teach and coach people on how to brand, but I was very much against branding. Mm-hmm. If you had spoken to me 10 years ago or 15 years ago and said, "Hey, Steve, let's talk about branding," I'd be like, "No, I don't want to talk about branding." We all have doubts. As entrepreneurs, we all have doubts. We all have insecurities. Now, I'm a biker. I've got, as you can probably see from this, I've got piercings and there's tattoos and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, if I was outside a whiskey bar at 12 o'clock at night on Sunset Boulevard, it wouldn't surprise you.
Yeah.
But to be walking through the Vatican, or to be, you know, in the Pentagon or lecturing at Harvard, you wouldn't really kind of see me there, or, you know, you wouldn't imagine me being there. So I actually, and this was one of my doubts, I had a hang up about what I looked like. I actually really, so in the early stages, there was never a picture of me on the website. Okay. Also, because I speak East London and not kind of how bearing in mind, when I was starting, it was the period, and I hated him. I met him a few times, and I told him this. I hated him at the time, Hugh Grant.
Yep.
Because everyone in the planet thought that a British guy was Hugh Grant.
Yeah.
You know, he was very eloquent. He had squiffy hair. You know, he was just dapper. And there's me turning up like I'm going to just kind of like beat you to death. And so I had a problem with it. So the daft thing is, I anti-branded. I made sure I was nowhere. And the funny thing is, my concierge firm, it has no phone number. It has no email address on the website. You cannot go to our website and contact me. And the reason I did this was because I didn't want the weakest element of what I do to convince you to give me money. And the weakest element of everything that I did was me. I thought, look at me. You're not, you know, the people that have sent me, you know, millions of dollars in single transactions. You know, it's just ridiculous. I have, you know, black cards just stored, you know, it's just ridiculous, the kind of things that I've been, you know, privy and luxury to have.
Right.
And I was always concerned about this. So this is how I got over it. I never branded myself, because I'm a great believer, and I teach people this now. What you think your brand is irrelevant. You're giving suggestions, but it's how the people receive it and acknowledge it that dictates what your brand is. Okay. If you had Nike, and Nike said, we're the best t-shirts in America, and every one of their clients was going, hey, Nike's the best sneakers in the world. Because Nike's trying to tell you that t-shirts and everyone that's buying is saying that they're sneakers, where's the brand? So you can try to create a brand. You can enforce the message with repetition like Apple does. But you need to respond to what the tribe, your followers, actually say about you. And that's where the important part is. If you anti-brand and react to what people say about you, because a lot of people said to me, oh, Steve, you're like the real life Wizard of Oz. And Forbes and Entrepreneur did an article and quoted me as the real life Wizard of Oz. So people started branding me as that, okay? I adopted the brand from the people I was doing business with. And you said about the sales cycle that we're now going to.
Yep.
People have paid you hundreds of thousands of dollars, okay? Now, I'm going to play a little game with you, and I demonstrate this when I do my speaking and coaching gigs, okay? So here's a little game for you. I walk into a bar, and we've never met, and you're stood there, and, you know, we'll give a shout out to our mutual friend, Bradley. And you're stood next to Bradley because I know you like and respect Brad, okay? And I come up to you, and I go, Coach Burt, how you doing? My name's Steve SIMS. I've worked with Elon Musk, Richard Branson, the Pope. I've closed down museums, sent people down to the Titanic. I'm a big deal. How are you doing? And I put my hand out.
Yeah.
Now, you've never met me before, and that's how I introduce myself to you.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling like, who is this dick?
Bingo.
Yeah.
100%. Couldn't have positioned that better.
Yeah.
Exactly. It repels you.
Yes.
Now let's twist it. I walk into the bar. You're at the bar with Bradley. I ignore you. Why? Because I don't know who you are. I go to the end of the bar. I order an old fashioned, and Bradley elbows you in the ribs and he goes, Coach Burt, you see that boy down there? That's Steve SIMS. He's worked with Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and the Pope. Sent people down to the Titanic. That guy's a big deal.
Yep.
Now what do you think?
Yeah. Now I think you're a person of interest. Now I'm interested.
Right. So the details have never changed.
Right.
The facts, the conversation, there was no difference in the introduction. What was the value was the source that it came from. Okay? Now, if I tell you I'm brilliant, that's marketing, that's promotion, that's ego, that's vanity metric, whatever.
Right.
Okay? But if Brad Lee or a client that spent $750,000 with me for a good weekend tells you I'm brilliant, who are you going to listen to?
Yeah.
And I am stunned. And this is one of the things and as we both know, I do a lot within the real estate and mortgage and sales environment. I am stunned how you don't get those that are giving you money to not become your front line of sales and marketing. Like if I was to find a client of yours, and I'm sure you can, find 10 clients of yours that can say, without Coach Burt, I'm not here.
Yep.
Now, you have a great deal of regard. You have a great deal of respect. Your credibility's out there. It is. It simply is.
Yep.
So if you were to get some of those people that pay you to do your marketing, then you would actually get that introduction that you want. I don't have a phone number on my website. I don't have an email on my website, because anyone that comes to me with the following introduction. They come to me and they go, I was speaking to XYZ and he told me about how you closed down the Eiffel Tower, or how we played piano with Elton John, or how we got to do this. And I can just sit there knowing that I've already closed the deal and go, oh, well, I don't want to discuss that. But how can I make you more interested?
Yes.
And I know I've won. I don't have a sales cycle. I have no, even for my coaching, for my coaching, I have no sales cycle. I have no outgoing calls. Everything is incoming and I get my people to market for me. I'll reward them.
Yes.
And the coaches that I do, I had a client the other day that was on LinkedIn doing a big rant about how, his life has changed since he's been working with Steve SIMS. He's been doing this, he's been doing this. And I had a few people contact me from LinkedIn. And I said, look, if you're a good friend of this guy, have him make the introduction. So I back them back to them. And they go back and they go, hey, you mentioned Steve and he told me to go. So, of course, when they go back to him, what is he going to say? Oh, yeah, he did. He's reinforcing the sale for me.
Yes.
So by the time the clients are getting to me, I just need to answer the phone and go, yeah, what do you need? And what's your credit card?
Yes.
Which is a beautiful conversation, because we're in a credibility crunch. Money, we know the government can print more money. We know that websites, hell, you can make a website and have yourself photoshopped to look like Brad Pitt. But when it comes down to it, when it really comes down to it, we're in a results situation. Yep. And that is what builds up the credibility. So I would actually get you to go out to your people, your clients, and I would say to them, and this is I don't know if you've ever tried this, so I'm talking with you now, and I don't mean to be demeaning, but I'm trying to get through to the other people listening to this. Anyone in sales, sold a house, sold a mortgage, sold a car, sold a ring, whatever. Go back to your client and say to them, how's the house? How's the car? How's it? Whatever. And let them finish talking. And then say to them, hey, I want to be the best in my industry. Because I love the fact that Coach Burt, without a doubt, wants to be the top of his game. And I pray you never are. Because you have that constant drive to what you'll get to the top of the hill and then go, I can make this hill higher. I can make it. That's what you are. That's the person you are. And so I love that energy about you. So you can go back to your clients and go, how's this? How's this? How's this? I want to be the best in my circle. I want to be the best in the sandpit. And I need to ask you something that's going to enable me to be that. And of course, anticipation is a great warm up. It's a great seducer. And the person stood there going, what do you need? I want you to tell me what I did wrong. You ask a client that spent money with you, what did I do wrong? Now, if you go up to a client and you go, hey, how you doing? What do you love about Steve SIMS? They are going to be compelled to flatter you and throw ego at you and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Not my people, they'll probably just swear at me because that's the kind of crowd that I attract. But anyway, but if you go to people and you go, what did I do wrong? It triggers a different part in your subconscious.
Yes.
And they think. Now, you can't lose on that question, because if they go, well, you only phoned me on a Friday, and I really could have done with that phone call on a Thursday. You know, you only ever did this. You did this, but I had to chase you. Anything they say, you can go, thank you. I'm going to work with that. Thank you. But if they turn around and they go, Coach Burt, I wouldn't be where I was without you. You know, Coach Burt got me to where I needed to get this championship. I needed to get my business off the ground. I needed to do this. I needed a good car. I needed a good house. If I didn't have you, it wouldn't happen. Then when they finished saying all those lovely things, and I'm daring you, because I'm guaranteeing that there's a ton of people listening to this go, no, don't do that. At the end of that statement, you then go, great. What 10 people do you know that should know that?
Yep.
And there's a lot of people that go, yeah, I'm a referral business. I say to them, do you have your phone number and your website and your email on your phone number and your email on your website? And they go, yeah, I do. And I said, well, you're not a referral business. You just get a few referrals. You know, I have no contact details on my website, none at all, because I'm 100% referral, because there's nothing stronger than getting a referral from someone else. But do ask them, what did I do wrong? And then at the end of it, ask for the introductions. What 10 people do you know that should know this?
Now, when you think about that, do you have to do something legendary? I mean, some of the things you've done are, you know, legendary type things, right? They're big things. I mean, obviously, if you get average results for people, you do things that get people talking. Like, that's interesting. Like, the whole concept when I wrote the book, Person of Interest, is, you know, it's people who are interesting. They're fascinating people. They live fascinating lives. They do fascinating things. They go to fascinating places. Like, how would you coach a person into being a fascinating person? Like, I know Dale Carnegie taught us, be interested, right? And person of interest, I'm saying, yes, be interested, but also be interesting. You know, be an interesting person.
So we got a split here. You know, if you want to be interesting, then, you know, learn some good stories, and, you know, that's one thing, but it's almost like a suit. It's almost like a facade. Okay. I think today, and yes, I can name drop, and it helps me get on stage. It helps with my credibility and my photographs and all. Yeah, that's all great. But the bottom line, at the end of the day, find out what problem you're solving. That's what makes you interesting. You see, if I'm going to go and meet, if I've got a girlfriend, you know, let's say if I'm seeing me, my wife, you know, she comes to her intelligence and kicks me out one day, and I get this girlfriend and I want to seduce her one weekend, and I turn up with a little Tiffany bag. Now she's going to see the Tiffany bag. She's going to see the bow. She's going to undo it. There's the Tiffany box. It doesn't matter if there's a diamond ring in there, a pair of earrings, or a key ring holder from Tiffany. She's already bought into the Tiffany experience.
Yes.
Okay. She's already excited, the anticipation, all this kind of stuff. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, if she's got a headache and she runs into the cabinet to get a headache tablet, do you think she cares what the packaging looks like on the headache tablet? She doesn't. You see, the bottom line of it is, in luxury, we need to package it with all of this fluff to be able to raise the price tag. Okay. You can go to Tiffany and you can spend your millions of dollars on something. You can actually go to the jewelry district in, say, New York, and get a better cut diamond for like a quarter of the price. But if it's Mikhail's diamonds from New York, or it's Tiffany, she wants the name of the associate. It's like Ferrari, you know, there's many other cars out there, but Ferrari's got the cachet. It's won that category there.
Right.
So with me, and again, going back to my anti-branding, I didn't want to be interesting. I wanted to make you interesting. I wanted to focus on what problem did I need to solve. Now, bearing in mind, in the early stages, I wanted two things. I wanted affluent clients and I wanted to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke earlier about being poor, and I said I'd go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in my teens being a big, thick East London bricklayer biker, thinking I was invincible and tough, and resenting the fact that I'd grown up poor.
Mm-hmm.
Resented my family, resented my life. It wasn't until my mid-20s that I realized I'd never gone to bed without a hug. I'd never not got a bedtime story. I was never hungry. My lights had never, ever been turned off. The water was always running. My home was warm. I was always dry. You know, I had seen value in things that didn't matter, yet the cores were there. I was loved, nourished, and put to hard work. They had given me the greatest education. I realized how wealthy I was, and I now had those attributes. I now could go out and knew what hard work looked like. I didn't have to worry about a sparkling website. I just knew that I had to find out what your problem was. And again, like a headache tablet, didn't matter what the packaging was like. I just needed to solve your headache tablet, your headache problem. And again, here's the dumb thing that you said earlier about rich clients. And this is why I love you about your comment. How many people do you know that have a brilliant business idea, have a brilliant business concept, and then they market down? Yeah. They sell down. Why? Because we know what the feeling of having no money's like, because we've pretty much all been there. Yep. Very few of us know what it's like to have a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But people have problems. So if you want to be demanded, if you want to be required, find out what problem you solve. Now, it can be houses, it can be cars, it can be jewelry, it can be mindset, it can be fitness, it can be any one of those things. If you go up to someone and go, look, you're in pretty damn good shape, but you know, I can work out a fitness regime for you that would only take 2 mornings a week. You'd lose weight, you'd be more invigorated, you'd have a greater sex drive. You know, you're offering a solution to someone. So it doesn't matter, you know, the stories. It doesn't matter how big the things are. Find out what the problem is. It could be carpet cleaning. You know, Joe Polish is famous for building an entire empire with some of the greatest networking people out there. And he started as a carpet cleaner. Why? Because he identified a problem.
So when you think about this concept of taking your business to the next level, so to speak, and you've got the concept of blue fishing, explain blue fishing to people. Is it just a concept of explain them to people what that means? Because every time I'm in, I think Houston, Texas, I ride by this restaurant called Blue Fishing, and I always think about you. And I send you a picture of that.
That restaurant, funny enough, wins awards, and they get sent to my office, and I end up having to send them back. So there's often a confusion between me. It's a sushi restaurant, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it keeps getting voted as a brilliant sushi restaurant, and I keep getting asked for interviews, and I'm like, it's not me. So it's very funny. So you've got to understand how it actually came in the context of Bluefish. When I threw my first party, I wanted to have like a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke. So I told everyone where it was. I charged them up front. They could drink everything they wanted inside, but I charged them up front, which got rid of poor people, and it got rid of the need for a liquor license because I wasn't physically selling anything inside, okay? So it worked out well there. But I had these people turning up, and they had to answer the password. And one of the passwords I had, because I just wanted rich people to say silly things, was I finished this sentence: 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish. So people would come up to the door and they'd go, blue fish. And I'd be like, in you go, enjoy the night. And we had about 3 or 4 different sayings, but this bluefish one stuck in people's mind. And people used to come up to me going, hey, you're that bluefish company, aren't you?
Yep.
So again, doesn't matter what you say, matters what they say. So we became that bluefish company. And then what happened was we stopped accepting the parameters and the ceilings given to us by people that we didn't regard or respect. So if we went to a concert, it would almost be a challenge how you can go backstage and hang out with the singer or something. Mm-hmm. So this element of how far can we push it, like the Florence restaurant. The client didn't ask me to take down a museum. Mm-hmm. You know, he could have been happy if I'd have just put him in a really good restaurant. But I wanted to see what I could do. I wanted to see how far can I push this. And I've tried so many times and failed, but I've always exceeded the client's expectations because they didn't see where I started in the first place.
Right.
So people say to me, have you ever failed a client? Well, the answer is no, because I never gave the client what they wanted. I gave them what they needed and lust for and dreamed about, you know? I've often failed getting what I wanted, but I've always exceeded what it was they needed. So as this happened, my people, my tribe, my community, they would throw like a birthday party. And they would say, oh, yeah, I did a birthday party Saturday night for my kids, but I bluefished the hell out of it because I brought this in and I had this come in. And I had a client say to me that he went to a concert and he bluefished his way backstage. And this is a picture with him. I think it was, I forget what her name is now, but some big name that he had with him. And it became this mindset, this, I'm not going to accept the parameters. How far can I push this?
Yeah.
Now, as a cheeky little Irish lad from East London, we're well known for pushing it. You know, what can we get? You know, if you give me one lollipop, what's it going to take for me to get two? You know, we're pushy little buggers. Yeah. So Bluefish became this mindset of how far can I take this? How far can I push it? And so it got adopted. And people would literally start using it as an adjective, as an action point. And I'll be honest with you, I tried changing the name of the company. I thought to myself, this is silly. I'm starting to work with some of the richest people in the planet, and people are calling up going, hey, Bluefish. And I'll be like, I've got to change it to something respectable. So we actually did a name change. This is true. Not a lot of people know this. We tried to do a name change in like early 2000 to something called Trianon. And if you don't know what Trianon is, it means, or if you do, I'll still explain it. Trianon is the ultimate court of the Greek gods. So when the Greek gods argued and they couldn't come to an agreement through the regular courts, there was the almighty court that was, and you want precociousness, here it goes, it was the final say on everything. So we thought, can't get more precocious than that. We're going to be called Trianon. So we literally went through the expense of renaming the company Trianon, and people would phone us up and go, hey, is that Bluefish company? And we'd be like, nope, we are Trianon. And then hang up because something happened that as soon as we became a precocious name, we adopted this precocious attitude. Yes. And we were no longer approachable. We were focusing on this branding thing. We were focusing about how we care about how we look. And we could see our sales going down and we could see our connection. And clients would contact me. By this time I had a cell phone. I thought I was the richest guy on the planet because I had a mobile phone. And they'd be like, Steve, we phoned up the office, but there's this Trianon company. Where's Bluefish gone? And I'd be like, no, we did a name change. And they all turn around and go, why'd you do that? Yeah. I'll be like, yeah, all right. So we had to pay for it to go back again. So that was one of my.
Well, it's interesting. It becomes an action, right? We're bluefishing. Act like it's an action word.
It became an action. And it just took off. And even when the book, when they approached me, Simon Schuster said to me, we want you to do a book on all the powerful people that you've worked for and what they've done. And I said to him, if I did that, I'd be dead by old-fashioned time. You know, I'd be dead by cocktail hour. And then they came back to me like a couple of months later and they said, well, here's an idea. Why don't you do a book on how a 15-year-old bricklayer can suddenly now be doing this around the planet? And that suddenly became, and even before we started thinking of titles, they came to me and they said, we've looked over, and again, this is perfect example of what the crowd says versus what you say. They came to me and they said, and we're going to call it Bluefishing, the art of making things happen.
Yes.
And I was like, okay. And the funny thing is, again, like an idiot, I said to him, do we need to say Bluefishing? You know, isn't that like a little bit childish of a name? And of course I didn't win my way and it stayed. And it's just, it's down to that momentum. You can't stop a speeding train.
All right, last question. You said something to me on a call we had about an event I was talking to you about, and it stuck. And you said to me, you may not remember this, but you said it seems like a lot of friction, right? And you use that word friction. And that one word stuck with me because since that day, I came back to my team and I'm like, look, it's too much friction. I want to remove the friction. Steve Sims talking about friction. And it was, I want it to be easy. It seems complicated, right? And you've used that word during this interview. So explain to people, because there's a lot of people, I do business with a lot of people, you do business with a lot of, and there's a lot of friction. It's hard to do business with them. It's complicated. It's convoluted. There's multiple, you got to do this and you got to do this. So one of my big mantras since that talk that you and I had, just about that event, I came back to my company and I said, look, we need to remove the friction. There's too much friction in this process. It's too complicated. We want to make it, and from that point forward, the deciding factor on a lot of decisions has been that one thing. How do we remove the friction? There's too much friction in the process. So talk to people about what you mean by that when you said that to me that day, because I think that's a good takeaway.
So a lot of people understand the concept of ROI, return on investment. Okay. My dad taught me ROE. Now, he taught me ROE before I'd even heard of ROI. And ROE was return on energy or return on effort. And it was a case of you'd put a lot of effort into something, a ton of effort into something, and you'd make 50 grand. But the thing is, it would wear you out. If I said to you now, hey, if you can run around your house, for say like 30 miles, for the equivalent of 30 miles, and I will give you $10,000. Now, people will look at the $10,000 and not look at how they will be at the end of 30 miles. Because at the end of 30 miles, you're not doing anything for the rest of the day. You're not doing anything for a few days. Your legs hurt, it's kicked you out. All of a sudden, that's not 10 grand for 30 miles. That's 10 grand for 3 days. So the ROE is trying to remove the friction and being able to do things in the simplest, cleanest way that gives you a greater return on energy. If you do an event and there are people that are causing you friction and asking a lot of questions and are not the right kind of people to be at the event, don't invite them.
Yep.
Tell them you can't have them come along. Say, hey, thank you very much. We're actually fully packed. If something happens, you lied, whatever. Get rid of friction. Fire clients,
Yep.
Fire projects, fire staff. If you look at anything in your life, and here's the real key, if you have to adapt you to communicate with that one of those, then that's friction. And how many times have you had a conversation? And we've all had it. You only learn these lessons by actually going through it. But I'll be talking to a client that's a prick. And I don't want to deal with them, but I'm making a lot of money. And I'm kind of like, I understand what you say. Yeah. And your body and your energy is all getting really sapped because you're trying to kind of like put up with this guy. And then when the conversation ends, the next phone call's your wife or your mate or another prospect or potential client. And you pick up the phone, you go, yeah, what is it? And you snap. Now, if you're lucky, the person on the other end of the phone is close enough to you to go, whoa, I don't deserve that. And you go, I'm sorry, I had a bad conversation earlier, okay? But if the person you're talking to is not yet a client, not yet strong enough of a relationship, they're not going to challenge you. They're just never going to call you again. And then you've lost that client. So you've really got to look at everything you do and go, how much energy am I putting into keeping this sourpuss? How much energy am I putting in to keep this cancerous item in my life? And you've got to remove that friction. And at first, it will seem weird. Here's a weird thing. Within 6 months, I fired 2 of my top paying clients and my top salesperson. Because my top salesperson was creating so much friction and animosity between all the others that she was creating a grumpy environment. I had to fire her.
Yep.
Now you go, and then I lost 2 of my best clients. And you think, I've lost this, was this a stupid thing? But all of a sudden, the mood of the place was happier.
Yep.
Everyone was more cheerful. You didn't have to wake up on a Monday going, crap, I'm going to have to deal with her. All of a sudden, you were like, it took us, I would say, 4 weeks before we didn't even notice that hole was there.
Yep. Yep. Well, we've had a fascinating interview, and man, that finish there, I think that was some good stuff. When you have to adapt yourself to other people, that is friction. And I think that's a really, really great way to end. Make it simple. Make it simple. Steve, I enjoy my time with you, man. You and I are
I appreciate it, boy.
so we're going to be doing some things together. I'm excited about it. I look forward to getting to know you at a deeper level. You are a person of interest, and this has been a fascinating interview, and I didn't expect anything less from you, big guy. You always deliver the goods. So have a great day. God bless you. And guys, this is Person of Interest. How do you become a person that other people cannot live without? Mr. Steve Sims. Pick up blue fishing and follow this guy, because you're really, really going to pick up a lot of things. All right. Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Coach Michael Burt, and the #1 book that I've written over the last couple of years that could help you during these unusual times is a book I wrote called Inside the Mind of a Monster. Now, I want to give you that book. All you have to do is text 678-506-7543. Because when you text that in, I'm going to give you a copy of my book, Inside the Mind of a Monster. And it's going to show you the habits and mindsets of top producers and how they attack every single day versus play defense. Don't you want to play offense? Get this book. I'm giving it to you, and I'm telling you, I'm going to turn you into a legendary creature.